The alienation of understanding politics. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and I'm going to do a brief unscripted video. I had some ideas tonight, but I went to a restaurant to get myself a semi nice meal. It was about $19 because I got a very nice one time donation from an audience member, and I had a little bit of breathing room, so I decided to spend that little bit of money on myself. So I was at the restaurant and I was thinking about what I was going to do my video about. And then all of a sudden, right next to me, I was sitting right next to where the servers get the food from the cooks, and I could hear them speak to each other. And there wasn't any orders that were being taken to the table. It was near closing time. And the young woman who was my server was talking about how she had to write an essay. And one of the things that she was wondering, she asked one of the cooks what a conspiracy was. Like, what was the actual definition of a conspiracy? Obviously, that was of interest to me because I was like, really? Do they not know? I thought everybody knew that. I thought that that's a pretty common knowledge definition. So I listened for a moment, and they were both kind of mulling it over with each other. And another cook came over. And as I listened, it became apparent that they didn't really know how to define it. They seemed to be aware of the general premise of, people doing stuff that was bad or whatever, but they were really bad at actually defining it. So I decided after hearing them attempt for a little bit that I would, drop some knowledge bombs on them because that's what I do. And so I explained, I was like, well, a conspiracy is generally defined as a time in which people with power coordinate with each other to do something that is either illegal or unethical. And the girl was like, unethical, thank you. That was the word I was looking for. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, yeah, I knew that I knew what it was, but I couldn't really define it. And I was like, yeah, that's understandable. It's one of those words that you hear and you know what it is when people are talking about it, but you don't know how to actually define it. And then one of the cooks was like, yeah, and a conspiracy theory is when, and he tried to define what a conspiracy theory was, and he was mostly right. So I was like, yeah, conspiracy theory is when people suspect that there is a conspiracy going on, that powerful people are coordinating with each other to do something unethical or immoral, but we don't know for certain that they're doing that, but we have a theory that they're doing that. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's untrue. It just means that that's our theory. And a lot of people think that conspiracy theories are automatically untrue, but that's not true. And he was like, okay, cool. And they seemed glad to know about that. That got me thinking about myself as an individual and how weird it is and how alienating it is for YouTubers, political pundits, political writers, probably politicians, and basically anybody who understands politics. Once you really get into politics and talking about politics, there's so much to talk about, and we're talking about it all the time, and it's very, very interesting to us. But the average person knows almost nothing about it, to the point where they can't even define conspiracy. They don't actually even know about it. And that's weird, and it's alienating. And most people don't want to talk about politics. They find it tedious, and I do believe that mainstream media and politicians keep it that way. They want people to be somewhat unaware of politics and think that it's just out of their grasp of understanding because people are easier to control that way. And because once you start learning the truth about politics, you realize that most of what you hear is lies anyway. And it's not really that hard to learn about the truth. You just have to kind of know where to look and how to examine data properly. You have to know, not to trust feminist statistics or statistics from the religious right or something like that, and to really look at things like the FBI and the census and what is actually going on and check it for yourself, and then you can figure out what's actually going on pretty easily. It's not that hard, but it takes a while. It takes a lot of attention. And if somebody's working a job at a restaurant all day, they're probably just never really going to have that time. That being said, I just today was contacted by a friend of mine who wants to hang out. And this is technically my oldest friend in the world that I still am friends with, that I actually see. There is one person that I've known a little bit longer, but I am only friends with him on Facebook, and I haven't seen him in over 25 years, probably. But this girl I have been friends with since early grade school, and we're still friends. We hung out about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago last is when I last saw her, and we've hung out, at least 5 times within the past, 5-10 years. Not a lot, but we see each other and we catch up, and we're living in the same city. She has her first baby. She's married and she has a house. She has a husband that makes a good living, and they have their first baby, who's probably about a year and a half old by now, maybe coming up on 2 years. So she has her own life. And this girl is cool. She understands things, and more than that, she went to all of my schools with me. Like, she went to at least 1 year of elementary school, and then she was in middle school with me, and then she was in high school with me at the alternative high school that I went to, which was very, very far leftist and, very feminist leaning in the 90s, before that was a super bad thing. We all considered ourselves feminists probably, but we didn't really know anything about the theory because nobody really did. And feminism back then wasn't so bad. They still taught women self-defense and stuff, whereas I never hear of that these days. So that being said, I am going to have to catch up with this person because I had written her a number of months ago and said I wanted to hang out. And then she said that she wanted to, but then she got busy and, she has a kid and everything. But she just wrote me today saying that she wanted to hang out. And I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be kind of, I don't want to say awkward, but I have to be very mentally prepared for how I hang out with her, because ultimately I want to be friends with her. I want to meet her where she's at as an individual. I want to hear about motherhood. I want her to want to hang out with me, because I don't really hang out with that many people in person. Very, very few people do I hang out with in person. I hang out with probably, I can think of 4 people in person, and very, very rarely do I actually do that. Not that I don't know a whole bunch more people, I just don't really hang out with them. But I want this girl to be my friend. But and furthermore, she knows, she's met at least one of my sisters, and she knows this guy that I talk about a little bit on my channel, who I've known for since grade school, because we went to middle school with him and high school, and he recently really, really betrayed me and let me down as a friend. And despite the fact that I considered him my oldest friend, I had to let him go as a friend entirely, and I will never be friends with him again. Like, I think that he has pathological selfishness to the point of maybe having antisocial personality disorder, and I've learned this by way of his reaction to me becoming critical of feminism. I learned that this girl and I have both known since middle school, and, I was very close to, she was never really close to him. She was only vaguely friends with him, and really probably only through me. Like most people were. Most people were only friends with this guy through me. I was the popular one. I was the social one. People always thought it was kind of weird that I was friends with this guy. And then he became a far leftist activist in adult life, and he became somewhat of he was very well known for doing that. I don't want to get too much into the details, but people sort of just liked him because he had status as a far leftist activist. But ultimately, it was a lot of it was based on lies from his part, and he just had an undying devotion to far leftist activism because it was basically his career in so many words. When I started questioning the far left and feminism in particular, he was, long story short, my sister, who is a feminist, but I don't want to get into the details on that, but she's a very malicious person and she likes to lie a lot. She went out of her way to turn him against me. It sounds really crazy, but this really happened, and it's a long story. She contacted him to basically turn him against me and tell him that, I'm wrong about feminism and that I'm awful and that he shouldn't listen to me. And she had all these, I don't really know exactly what she said to him. I don't really know exactly because of the fact that she never told me any of this stuff. My sister never contacted me once. She never asked me, why are you criticizing feminists? Like, why are you criticizing feminism, Prince? I want to hear your side of the story. She never did that. Instead, she preemptively started socially sabotaging me to my friends, starting with him because she had him on Facebook or whatever. And she successfully turned him against me with like one phone call. To the point where I thought, because I knew him for 25 years, I obviously thought that he would listen to me and hear my side of, he would listen and hear why I was criticizing feminism and the far left, because I had been really researching it constantly and got really into understanding it. He wouldn't even listen. He was like, nope, I think you're wrong. I think you're wrong. And I was like, well, can you listen to my arguments? And he's like, I'm not interested, but I think you're wrong. And I'm like, well, you haven't actually listened to my reasoning at all. And he was like, yeah, well, I'm not interested. And you're trying, you don't get to order me around. You don't get to tell me what I'm interested in. And I'm like, well, yeah, but you sided against me. So it's kind of messed up. And eventually I just had to stop being friends with him. And it wasn't just that. He's actually a really terrible person that does terrible things to anybody that gets close to him. I really do think he has antisocial personality disorder. But it all came to head and it all became very clear that I could not be his friend because of my political beliefs. And I think that he can't bring himself to even question far leftist activism because it's his career. And he was willing to throw away our friendship for it entirely. So I'm going to hang out with this girl that knows him. And I have to explain to her all of that. Like, I do have to explain that to her because she is going to be interested, but it is a long story. And I am going to have to explain a few things about feminism. And I know she's critical of feminism because we've talked about it before. And she totally admits that, it's stupid to say that girls never lie about rape because she knows that they do. Like, we talked about it. We talked together about girls from high school that we knew lied about rape. So I know I can have this conversation with her, but we're going to be doing it over coffee. So I have to I have to choose my words very, very carefully because I don't want to come off like I'm some ranting crazy person and just go like blah, 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 feminism, blah, 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 Hillary Clinton, blah, blah, like that's what I'm worried I'm going to sound like. And because people don't even know very, very basic things about this stuff. And I don't know where she's actually at. It's very alienating to understand this stuff sometimes. But, oh well, that's all for this video.